June 17th, on this day, in 362, Roman Emperor Julian issued an edict that banned Christians from teaching in Syria, aiming to restrict the influence of Christianity on education and public life. In 1239, Edward I, also known as Longshanks, who would later become King of England and reign from 1272 to 1307, was born. He is remembered for his role in shaping English law and for his conflicts with Scotland. In 1527, Spanish explorer Pánfilo de Narváez departed Spain with 5 ships and 600 men to explore Florida. By 1536, after facing numerous hardships and disasters, only 4 members of the expedition had survived. In 1579, English navigator Francis Drake landed on the coast of California at what is now Drake's Bay. He claimed the land for England and named it New Albion, believing it to be a new territory for the English crown. In 1631, Taj Mahal, wife of Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan, died during childbirth. Her death inspired Shah Jahan to build the Taj Mahal, a mausoleum that took over 20 years to complete and is now one of India's most famous landmarks. In 1703, John Wesley, the English evangelist and theologian who would go on to found the Methodist movement, was born. His teachings greatly influenced Christian life in England and beyond. In 1742, William Hooper, who would later become a signer of the United States Declaration of Independence, was born. He played a role in the founding of the United States. In 1775, during the Battle of Bunker Hill, American colonial revolutionaries clashed with British regulars outside Boston. Although the British took the hill, they suffered heavy casualties, marking a significant moment in the early American Revolution. In 1789, amid the early unrest of the French Revolution, representatives of the Third Estate declared themselves the National Assembly, signaling a shift of power and the beginning of radical changes in France. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte incorporated Italy into his expanding empire, reshaping European borders and consolidating French dominance in the region. In 1835, American soldier and future Confederate President Jefferson Davis married Sarah Knox Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky. This union connected him to the family of former U.S. President Zachary Taylor. In 1848, Austrian General Alfred Windisch-Gratz suppressed a Czech uprising in Prague, part of the widespread revolutionary movements across Europe that year. In 1853, Alexander Mackenzie, who would later become Prime Minister of Canada, married his second wife, Jane Sim. In 1856, members of the Republican Party held their first national convention in Philadelphia, formally launching the party's presence in U.S. politics. In 1861, President Abraham Lincoln observed Dr. Thaddeus Lowe demonstrate the use of a hot air balloon, an early experiment in aerial reconnaissance during the American Civil War. In 1863, on the road to Gettysburg, Union and Confederate forces engaged in skirmishes at Point of Rocks in Maryland, setting the stage for the pivotal Battle of Gettysburg. In 1871, Canadian giantess Anna Haining Swan, who stood at 7 feet 11 inches, married Martin Van Buren Bates, known as the Kentucky Giant, and 7 feet 9 inches tall, at St. Martin-in-the-Fields in London. Their wedding captured public imagination as a union of 2 of the tallest people of their era. In 1872, George M. Hoover began selling whiskey in Dodge City, Kansas, ending the town's dry status and contributing to its reputation as a lively frontier settlement. In 1876, General George Crook's command was attacked and defeated by around 1,500 Sioux and Cheyenne warriors under the leadership of Crazy Horse along the Rosebud River. In 1885, the Statue of Liberty arrived in New York. Hundreds of thousands of spectators gathered to welcome the iconic statue, a gift from the people of France that has become one of America's most recognized symbols of freedom. In 1912, the German Zeppelin SZ-111 caught fire and was destroyed in its hangar in Friedrichshafen, reflecting both the ambitions and dangers of early airship travel. In 1913, United States Marines set sail from San Diego to protect American interests in Mexico amid the country's political instability. In 1917, the Russian State Duma held a secret session in Petrograd and voted for an immediate Russian offensive against the German army, reflecting the intense pressures of World War I. In 1924, fascist militia members marched into Rome, highlighting the rise of authoritarian political movements in Italy during the early 20th century. In 1926, Spain threatened to quit the League of Nations if Germany was allowed to join, underscoring the tense international relations in the interwar period. In 1928, Amelia Earhart became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. Piloted by Wilmer Stultz with Earhart keeping the flight log, the Fokker F-7 aircraft landed at Bury Port, Wales, after 20 hours and 40 minutes, marking a major milestone in aviation history. In 1930, the United States enacted the Smoot-Hawley tariff, raising import tariffs by about 20% in a move widely seen as exacerbating the effects of the Great Depression. In 1931, British authorities in China arrested Indochinese communist leader Ho Chi Minh, who would later play a crucial role in Vietnam's struggle for independence. In 1932, the United States Senate rejected the bonus bill as 10,000 World War I veterans protested around the Capitol, highlighting economic struggles during the Great Depression. In 1940, the Soviet Union invaded Latvia and also occupied Estonia and Lithuania. With the world's attention on the German invasion of Paris, the Baltic states fell under Soviet control, leading to decades of incorporation into the Soviet Union. In 1943, American pop singer and songwriter Barry Manilow was born. He would later become known for his elaborately orchestrated romantic ballads. In 1944, Iceland declared itself a republic after centuries of rule under the Norwegian and Danish monarchies. Svein Bjornsson became the first president, marking a new era in the island nation's history. In 1944, French troops landed on the Mediterranean island of Elba, contributing to the liberation of occupied territories during World War II. In 1950, surgeon Richard Lawler performed the first successful kidney transplant operation in Chicago, pioneering a new era in organ transplantation. In 1953, Soviet tanks confronted thousands of Berlin workers protesting against the East German government, an event that highlighted discontent in Eastern Europe during the early Cold War. In 1962, Jack Nicklaus won his first major title at the United States Open men's golf tournament at Oakmont Country Club, defeating Arnold Palmer by 3 strokes in an 18-hole playoff. In 1963, the United States Supreme Court banned the required reading of the Lord's Prayer and Bible in public schools, establishing a key precedent for the separation of church and state. In 1965, 27 B-52 bombers struck Viet Cong outposts in South Vietnam, but lost 2 planes during the mission, underlining the intensity of the Vietnam War air campaign. In 1970, North Vietnamese troops cut the last operating rail line in Cambodia, further isolating the country and impacting the regional conflict in Southeast Asia. In 1971, Carole King's album Tapestry reached #1 on the United States album charts and remained there for 15 weeks, becoming a landmark in pop music history. In 1972, 5 men were arrested for breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate office complex in Washington, D.C. This event sparked the Watergate scandal, ultimately leading to the resignation of President Richard Nixon. In 1994, millions of Americans watched live as former football player O.J. Simpson, facing murder charges, led police on a slow-speed chase through Los Angeles in his Ford Bronco. The event became one of the most watched moments in television history. In 2012, Rodney King, the African-American construction worker whose videotaped beating by Los Angeles police officers in 1991 and the resulting court cases triggered violent race riots, was found dead in his swimming pool in California. In 2018, The Incredibles 2 set a new box office record for an animated film, earning $180 million in its opening weekend.
Subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's events.